Hey everyone, I'm Cosmic and welcome to the Cloud. As of making this video, we're a little under a month to go until Splatoon 3's Grand Festival, what looks to be the culmination of everything the game has been building up to. It's pretty exciting, and it looks like they have some really neat stuff in store, including a whole new hub area in the crater. As we wait for more information, I can't help but be reminded of the time leading up to Splatoon 2's Final Fest. When that event was revealed, we were shown this huge poster with not only the idols, but pretty much every major character from Splatoon 1 and 2. From the reveal until the fest itself, we even got posts from Nintendo that provided each character's reasoning for choosing their team. What was cool about this is that it essentially served as a kind of alignment chart for the entire Splatoon cast. It was a super unique way to get some more insight into each of these characters while also tying everything in the game back to this central theme of chaos versus order. The thing is, it's been a while since these posts were made, and they can't be found anywhere in-game, so they've become kind of obscure. Also, I swear they were posted on Twitter in English back in 2019, but Twitter's search engine sucks so bad that I literally could not find them, only the Japanese versions. Thankfully, they were also uploaded to the official Splatoon Tumblr and were documented on the Splatoon wiki. So, in anticipation of Grand Festival, I thought it might be fun to look back at these posts and hopefully make them a bit more accessible to newer fans. Plus, I figured this could be a chance to provide some of my own commentary looking back on these characters with the context of Splatoon 3. To start us off, let's begin with Team Chaos. With Chaos, you never know what'll happen next, which is awesome. The Queen of Chaos won't stand for a world full of the same old boring colors. What new hues will the power of her voice unleash during the final Splatfest? Pearl embodies chaos in more ways than one, but I think the specific argument she makes during the Final Fest announcement is really interesting. While the aesthetic of chaos is this kind of Mad Max desert anarchy, chaos as a narrative element, at least in Splatoon, is more about the fear or acceptance of change. It's almost always used in reference to the passage of time and the shifting of ideas. Pearl is a character who was born into privilege, and she hasn't really ever had a reason to fear change. Stability is a given for a person like her, and that gives her the confidence to do whatever. There's no comfort in stagnation when you feel like you have the power to change the world. That doesn't mean she can't sometimes stop and appreciate what she has, but even then, she's always pushing Marina to try new things, even if it means going outside her comfort zone. Sometimes Pearl's headstrong nature can even get her into fights with Marina. This was briefly mentioned in Side Order, but in the Splatoon 3 soundtrack interview between Marie, Marina, and Big Man, we learned that one time Pearl straight up left and didn't contact Marina for days. So Pearl's unequivocal acceptance of change is both a flaw and a strength. Left unchecked, her unending hunger for something new can hurt the people she cares about, but it also leads her to bigger and better achievements and is often the reason she forms connections in the first place. Pearl's philosophy of chaos is one of embracing the future, even if that sometimes means losing sight of the present. I might be a pop star, but even I want to pop off every now and then. She can be a handful for Marie with her carefree and adventurous attitude, but it's that same free spirit that qualifies her to be a resident of the world of chaos. Team Chaos makes a lot of sense for Callie. She's headstrong, fearless, and has a song about throwing bombs at people. Especially in regards to her dynamic with Marie, she's the one who says the out-of-pocket things for Marie to make snarky comments on. She isn't nearly as future-obsessed as Pearl, but her personality is largely defined by her carefree attitude. Notably, Callie being on Team Chaos means she shares a team with DJ Octavio. While Octavio did eventually resort to brainwashing Callie in Splatoon 2's story, the official Splatoon relationship chart reveals that Callie seems to have initially approached him willingly. Them sharing a penchant for chaos may have played a part in that. I can't say chaos had too much of a role in the story of Octo Canyon, but Callie's outgoing nature probably contributed to her increasingly busy schedule and the distance created between her and Marie. In the end, it's definitely fair to describe Callie's personality as chaotic, but not to such an extent that it defines who she is. Don't forget about us. One has tasted bitter defeat in battle. The other is literally a copycat. These two may be nothing alike, but their desire to step out of the shadows and into the light burns with all the chaos of a firestorm. Actually, they're pretty similar when you think about it. This pick is notable for a number of reasons. First, Octavio is actually on the opposing team of his own subjects, the rest of the Octarians. This does make some sense, because while Octavio is motivated by the needs of his people, namely stealing Zapfish from the Inklings in order to quell the Octarian energy crisis, he is also twisted by a desire for revenge. In a sense, he makes use of order to command the Octarians, but his goals are ultimately fueled by a desire for chaos. And then there's the fact that he's paired with Little Judd. It seems like they've been setting up something with Little Judd for a long time. The Splatoon 2 art book and a Splatoon 3 scroll state his intention to stab Judd in the back, he has a mysterious connection to GrizZyZygarde, and here they even state that he is suspiciously similar to one of the series' main antagonists. I honestly don't know if Little Judd is supposed to be this long-running gag character or if he's actually going to be important someday, but this is from 2019 and he hasn't really done anything yet, so we'll just have to keep waiting, I guess. Agent 4 is the type of squid who goes with the flow, even when the waters are raging. This silent squid values freedom and flexibility more than anything, and while it's rumored that Agent 4 helped Marie save the world or whatever, I'm pretty sure that was mostly Marie's idea. Hey, look, it's one of the 3 official sources of characterization for Agent 4. There's not a ton I can say about 4 themselves, besides this perpetuating the idea that they're some kind of gremlin child, but it is pretty interesting that they're on the same team as DJ Octavia. I honestly think it's super cool that a protagonist and antagonist in Splatoon don't have to be these diametrically opposed forces. 4 and Octavio find themselves in a conflict of interest, but that doesn't necessarily mean they can't share a similar philosophy on the world. Like most Splatoon lore, this is another reminder that these characters are more similar than they are different, which I really appreciate. Their single-minded drive to get back to their spawning grounds could be seen as orderly, if you squint, but who are we kidding? The frenzied, indiscriminate way they stampede over anyone and everything in the way of that goal is chaos to a T. This is another one I shouldn't really have to explain. I do think the Salmonids have been shown to be more orderly than this post suggests, between them conducting trade agreements with the Octarians and keeping their weapons in prime condition. But yeah, for the most part, at least as we see them in-game, they're pretty chaotic. Big Run especially is an example of them disrupting the order of Inkling society, so that's a pretty strong case in favor of this team. It's the flaws that make a thing beautiful. Someday, you'll see that too. What drove the Padre to Team Chaos? Could be that after so long traveling the same rails in the same car, he's ready for something new, no matter what shape it takes. Once again, we see the concept of chaos being related to change and time. Isopadre shows that some people will seek out chaos, regardless of its consequences, as long as it means they don't have to live the same exact day over and over. Isopadre does not come across very chaotic in Octo Expansion, but it's clear that he wants to escape this endless cycle of riding the deep sea metro train car. He has faith that 8 will be the one to free him from this cycle, and he speaks incessantly about dreams. Dreams themselves are a pretty chaotic thing, something we don't quite understand and that we cannot control. I like that Isopadre represents a more subtle side to chaos. He doesn't need an uprising or an apocalypse, he just needs to get out of the rut he's been stuck in. Something to spice up his life, but probably not to completely upend it. Oi mate, you really think this festival is going to decide the fate of the world then? Oh, that's terrible. Oh, I'm sorry for that. You've seen him in the cafe, fingers dancing across the keyboard of his laptop. Could those same fingers be pulling the strings of society? He may have found a way to exploit the peaceful order of Inkopolis, but make no mistake, at his core, Spike is an agent of chaos. This post is worth mentioning for how antagonistic it makes Spike sound. As far as we know, Spike does not have any ill intentions, though the legality of his service is questionable. He certainly found his market niche if this Splatoon 2 scroll is to be believed, but I don't know about pulling the strings of society. I think chaos suits him more than order, but I honestly view him as a pretty neutral figure in the grand scheme of things. Gear abilities are cool and stuff, I guess. Items stocked in her online shop provide a flair of eccentricity not available in standard gear. Squid kids everywhere are constantly refreshing their phones for a chance to snag her latest release. To me, Annie is a bit of a surprise for Team Chaos. Especially considering she's a character with social anxiety, I would think that she would feel similar to Marina, taking comfort in stability. But it's possible that Annie actually always wanted to express herself more freely and felt constrained by the limits of society. She's likely gained more confidence between Splatoon 2 and 3, considering her sudden interest in alt fashion, so maybe embracing chaos helped her better realize her own identity. Oh friends, what's a world without wild parties? Join me, won't you? Flo and Craymond set up shop looking to connect with the energies of the universe. They now hope to open a new world's third eye to the exciting possibilities of chaos. This one is less surprising. I do like that this post fully leans into the alcoholic aunt angle, and yes, her Japanese character profile on Splatoon base confirms that she drinks, but it doesn't reveal much that we didn't already know about her. She just seems like the kind of person that would be on Team Chaos. And with that, we're ready to move on to the other side. Leading the forces of order, we have Marina. I just want to protect the balance I've found in my life. Vowing to defend the stable life she's created for herself, this determined DJ holds these thoughts in her heart as the final Splatfest arrives. Contrasting the acceptance of change, Marina's philosophy is based on the idea of stability, valuing the things that she can control and have faith in. Taking into account Marina's history, this makes a ton of sense for her character. She was forced to abandon her old home, her old friends, and her entire way of life. On a whim, she ran into Pearl and their relationship blossomed. But that change wasn't something she particularly wanted. She did make the choice to leave the Octarian domes behind, but only because it became too much to bear. In the present day, all she wants is to live peacefully in her new home, surrounded by her new friends and Pearl. She can't handle the thought of her entire life getting turned on its head a second time. Team Order isn't just about the fear of change, though, it's about celebrating what you have. Marina greatly values her current life and the people in it, and she sees chaos as a threat to all that she loves. In many ways, Pearl and Marina embody the idea of opposites attract, but this is potentially the most interesting exploration of that dynamic. What is more important, appreciating what you have and love, or moving on to new experiences? Well, the latter is what won the Splatfest and is pretty much the conclusion Marina draws during the finale of Side Order. But that isn't a decision she makes lightly or something she commits to without contemplation. By the end of Splatoon 3, Marina exemplifies a balance of both sides. She knows that change is inevitable, but she decides to face the future alongside the people she knows she can rely on. Someone around here has to keep it together. Even though Callie's free spirit has been a good influence on her, Marie still likes things to be nice and neat. Even a bit of idle chit-chat needs a solid one-liner to stitch things up, which is why she's a solid candidate for the World of Order. Marie is the order to Callie's chaos. Unlike Pearl and Marina, who seem to pull one another in each direction, the Squid Sisters pretty evenly cancel each other out. Marie tends to be characterized as more responsible and cool-headed than Callie, so Team Order clearly suits her personality. She also served as a mentor to Agent 3 and especially Agent 4, who she trained without the help of Callie or Cuttlefish. She obviously opposes DJ Octavio for what he did to Callie, and in subsequent battles against Splatoon 2's final boss, she basically makes fun of Callie for falling for his tricks again. Just like how Callie isn't driven by chaos nearly as much as Pearl, Marie doesn't need a world of order to be happy. She just prefers simplicity and finds comfort in familiarity. We're on duty today, whether you like it or not. Can't sleep while the enemy plots. Agents 1 and 2 are generally busy with their own problems these days, so these guardians of order protect the denizens of Inkopolis from the shadows. Craig Cuttlefish was a lieutenant and a captain, making order a natural part of his life. He seeks to resolve the conflicts between the Inklings and Octarians in order to protect the status quo, and makes an effort to train new recruits to do the very same. Something of note is that while he may see DJ Octavio as a sort of a rival, he only ever acts in response to the Octarian invasions. While the Squidbeak Splatoon may sometimes go overboard in their retaliation, Cuttlefish normally isn't one to incite a conflict if he can help it. Agent 3 acts under the command of Cuttlefish without too much input of their own. Their cool demeanor in both Octo Expansion and Splatoon 3 does seem to paint them as the orderly type, although Haikara Walker revealed them to be a DJ on the side, so make of that what you will. Either way, these two literally keep order in Splatoon's world, so this placement makes plenty of sense. The light that was denied us will be ours. Since the Great Turf War drove them below, they have used their technological skill to bring a sort of order to their realm. But deep down, they know true order cannot be fabricated. It must be seized. This one is really interesting to me. Not only does it give a voice to these typically silent and obedient characters, but a confident and determined one. It shows that the Octarians are self-motivated and not just acting to serve Octavio. They want their freedom, and they're willing to work hard for it. Again, I find it fascinating that the Octarians would be on the same team as members of the Squidbeak Splatoon. Beyond all the violence that conspires between the Inklings and Octarians, they're really all fighting for the same thing: peace and order. Even Octolings who have been freed by the Calamari incantation don't lose their disciplined personalities. Agent 8 can't sleep at night until every nearby weapon has been methodically cleaned and checked. In fact, I hear Sheldon might be looking to hire 8 to work at Ammo Nights. Even after the events of Octo Expansion, 8 exemplifies the diligence of the Octarians, just without their firm collectivism. They still believe in the values of order, and live largely according to the principles they were taught in the domes, just not to the extent that those principles restrict their freedom. They likely feel similar to Marina, in that they want to hold on to the new life they have found on the surface. For 8, living in accordance with some amount of order is comforting, but of course they know better than anyone that it must come in moderation. These failed prototypes, endlessly warring for turf. If we assume that chaos already reigns and that order needs to be restored, who decides what order actually looks like? These two likely have their own opinions on that subject, and they probably don't include the words free or will. If any of Splatoon 2's characters were going to be on Team Order, it would be Commander Tartar. Order is really its whole thing. To prevent the Inklings and Octolings from falling into the violent patterns of humanity, it would capture them and erase their minds. It ran a hive mind of sanitized bodies which it used to control the deep-sea metro, and sought to eventually expand this reign to the entire world. Yeah, that sounds like Order to me. Perhaps more than any other two characters on this poster, 8 and Tartar being on the same team shows just how differently these themes can be interpreted. To some, order means freedom through having the stability to make your own choices, while to others it means protecting others from their mistakes through absolute control. Remember though that Commander Tartar actually held 8 in a high regard. It didn't think they were wrong to seek the life they did. It just wanted everyone else to also be like them. While these characters want seemingly opposite things for the fate of the world, there is some overlap in what they desire. And then we have Sea Cucumber. I find it surprising that he's placed alongside Tartar, because while he obviously worked for the telephone, it isn't super clear how much he actually knew about what was going on. It makes sense that a train conductor would want a world that is orderly, but this post seems to suggest something deeper. Was Sea Cucumber in on the true purpose of Kamaboko the whole time? Well, maybe, but that doesn't necessarily mean he agreed with Tartar's methods. Hisashi Nogami said in an interview that he isn't such a bad guy, he's just devoted to his job. CQ does mention that, like the other deep-sea denizens, he too is forbidden entry to the Promised Land. It's possible that he's just like 8, doing what he's told in the hope of gaining his freedom. Of course, this is all assuming we're talking about the same character. In case you didn't know, the Sea Cucumber we see at each of the 80 stations is actually a different individual, as confirmed by the developers in an interview. I'm guessing the CQ here is the one that rides the train with us, but we can't know that for sure. This new gear I got'll blow your fins off for reals. One quick glance into Merch's eye will tell you where his loyalties lie. This driven street urchin has laser focus and never rests on his laurels. Though he follows in the footsteps of an agent of chaos, he is, without question, ready to take your order. I'll be honest, this one just feels like it's set up to make that order pun at the end. I don't have much to say about Merch. He's Team Order because he sucks up to Spike. I don't really think it's much deeper than that. Their shared love for footwear makes it natural that they'd end up on the same side. When these neighbors get caught up in shoe talk, it can last until sunup. Is that why the lines for Sean's food truck are so long? I'll be real, the biggest reveal here is that it's possible for Splatoon shopkeepers to actually interact with one another. It's kinda cool that Sean and Bisque are shoe bros, but as far as them being on Team Order, I don't know, maybe they like organizing shelves? Considering in Splatoon 3, Krusty Sean throws caution to the wind and goes on a worldwide escapade, I actually feel like this one hasn't aged very well. And Bisque is Bisque. I don't know what you want me to say about Bisque. Forsooth, but fashion flourishes or fails on its fundamentals. Though a proponent of the idea that fashion is a form of freedom, Gelfonso is also firm that context is king. One look in his watery eyes confirms his constant commitment to couture. Again, not much to say about shopkeepers. They aren't exactly the most deep of characters, but I guess this placement makes sense. Honestly, the only odd thing about this post is that it features Gelfonso, but no Gelonzo, making the latter the only existing shopkeeper at the time to not appear on this poster. By the way, fun fact, did you know that Gelfonso was born from Gelonzo asexually reproducing? Congrats, now you do. And to close us out, there are actually a handful of characters that were neutral on the matter. Neither on the side of chaos nor order, these are, in my opinion, some of the most interesting choices out of the whole poster. Go on, give it a shot. So long as the turf war battles rage on, so too will Sheldon dedicate his life to crafting ink-based weaponry. This horseshoe crab cares not for the fate of Inkopolis, so long as he can continue to invent new ways to splat. Sheldon is shown to be somewhat obsessive, and he often seems to give more attention to his products than his customers. Still, him not even caring about the fate of Inkopolis is a bit surprising. I guess for him, working on weapons is very focused and orderly, but he's well aware of the chaos his creations will cause. So it might not be that he's completely ambivalent about the outcome of the Splatocalypse as much as he has a stake in both sides. Weaponry can bring order through chaos, and chaos through order. I guess Sheldon takes no responsibility either way. Don't be so worried. The sea answers all questions. As far as this mysterious being is concerned, the shallow affairs of Inkopolis are insignificant next to the vast depth of the Seven Seas. No matter what fate may await the world, the sea watches silently, biding its time. This one is definitely thought-provoking in retrospect. Mr. Grizz's entire arc in Splatoon 3 essentially leads to him accepting chaos, specifically the kind of chaos that Pearl advocated for and that Marina feared. He is so tied to his past that he cannot imagine anything other than working to restore it, and it isn't until his last moments that he finally realizes the beauty of living for the future. But in Splatoon 2, he was on Team Neutral. Now, I'm sure this is partly due to the developers not knowing which team would win and not having a super solid plan for Grizz's character, but it may also have to do with the way the question itself is worded. This Splatfest asked,
"What sort of a world would you wish for the Inklings and their friends?"
Mr. Grizz didn't want them to have any world at all. Perhaps he's neutral not because he doesn't embody chaos or order, but because his plan involves making sure neither outcome happens. Looking back, I actually think it's very fitting how ominous this post sounds. Grizz basically dodges the question entirely, instead suggesting that his answer will soon be obvious. After the countless battles he's presided over, always watching, always judging, is the future reflected in his eyes one of order or chaos? Whatever the case may be, the final showdown is about to kick off. It's Splatocalypse time. Judd is, of course, the judge, so I guess it's a good thing he felt neutral on the topic of discussion. Judd is a unique character in the context of Splatoon's world, because he knows more than just about every other living person. As the professor's pet cat, he may have even known about Tartar before the events of Octo Expansion, and yet he doesn't do much to influence the events of each story. Supposedly, he has taken some interest in the Inklings and Octolings, but to what extent and to what ends, if any, we don't know. Personally, I'm kind of okay with that. Judd's lore is neat, but he is pretty goofy, and it would be hard to take him seriously if he ever became too important. Plus, it's nice to see that not every remnant from the time of the humans is something that's out to destroy us. Judd acts almost as a benevolent deity to the Inklings, serving as a near-omniscient observer of their society, which, considering he is a cartoon cat, is as silly as it is sort of cool. As the last character in this series of posts, Judd served as the call to action, the harbinger of the Splatocalypse. And as we all know, in the end, he rose the flag of chaos. And that's all of them. I hope you found these as interesting as I do, and if you've never seen them before, I hope they helped you learn a bit more about each of these characters. I'm personally hoping that Nintendo does this again for all of Splatoon 3's new characters, but as of this recording, the only stuff they've tweeted about GrandFest just tells us that this hub world is in fact a hub world. Thanks, Deep Cut, I couldn't tell. This was supposed to just be a simple video to get out after I was away for 2 weeks, but it ended up taking a bit longer than I expected. I actually have some much bigger videos planned for the near future, but I might save them for after GrandFest at this point. Let me know if there are any smaller topics you'd like me to cover within the month, and maybe I can make it happen. But until then, thanks for watching. This has been Cosmic. Farewell.